You're seriously giving me this? That was the moment it happened. Not a scream, not a slap, not even a dramatic gasp. Just those 6 words dripping with disgust as my sister held the scrapbook like it was a used tissue. I blinked. It's a scrapbook. I made it myself. It has photos of us from when we were kids, and I know what it is, Sienna snapped, flipping a page with 2 fingers like it might bite her. God, Pearl, you're 30. Why are you still giving me arts and crafts? The room was empty now, just the 2 of us in the bridal suite after her shower. Earlier, the place had been packed with pastel cupcakes, fake laughter, and Presley squealing over lingerie. Now it was quiet, except for the sound of my heart thudding in my ears. I thought it'd be meaningful, I said. There's a page with Grandma's recipe in her handwriting, and the plane ticket stub from our first Disneyland trip. I spent weeks on it. Sienna rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. I told you we needed cash for the honeymoon. Jason and I are doing Bora Bora, not Memory Lane. She shoved the scrapbook back into the gift bag and tossed it onto the floor like it offended her. If you're not going to contribute to the fund, just say so. Don't do this whole sentimental guilt trip thing. I stood there, still holding the ribbon I'd tied around the bag. You asked for personal gifts at the shower. Yeah, from people who can't afford to do more. You can. You're always bragging about your savings account. I wasn't. I never bragged. I just once mentioned I'd paid off my student loans early, and somehow that became family code for Pearl's the bank. She crossed her arms. Look, it's not a big deal. Just Venmo me $2,000 or whatever. We'll call it even. Even. Like the last 15 years of bailing her out of overdraft fees, co-signing her car lease, and covering Mum's surprise birthday dinner that Sienna planned but forgot to pay for. Those didn't count. I didn't say a word. I bent down, picked up the scrapbook, and pulled the ribbon free. I folded it neatly, tucked it into my purse. Then I straightened up, looked her in the eye and said, "Okay." She blinked. "Okay? Okay," I repeated. I smiled. It wasn't warm. Then I turned and walked out of the suite. My heels clicked against the tile like punctuation marks. Something in me had snapped, but it snapped quietly, and that's always more dangerous. My name is Pearl, and I've been the family doormat for 3 decades. I'm the younger sister, the responsible one, the one who always shows up. I bring extra batteries to Thanksgiving. I remember everyone's birthdays. I keep a Google sheet of who likes what kind of wine. And Sienna? She's the sun around which our mother orbits. She's the drama, the sparkle, the one who just needs a little help right now for the 12th year running. Growing up, she used to steal my Halloween candy and then cry when I told Mom. Guess who got scolded for not sharing? At the bridal shower, she was in full performance mode. Hair extensions, fake lashes, a white dress that cost more than my rent. She opened each gift with a shriek and a squeal, tossing tissue paper like confetti. Presley, her maid of honour and fellow narcissist, kept shouting, "Yes, Queen!" every time Sienna unwrapped something remotely shiny. When it was my turn, I handed over the bag with both hands. I'd wrapped it in silver paper, tied it with ribbon, even added a sprig of lavender. Sienna smiled. Plastic, tight. "Oh, from my baby sister," she cooed, loud enough for everyone to hear. She opened it, flipped through a few pages and said, "So sweet." Then she moved on like it was a card from a co-worker. But later, when the guests were gone and the champagne buzz had faded, the real Sienna came out. I drove home in silence. No music, no podcast, just the sound of traffic and my own breathing. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel sad. I felt done, like something had finally clicked into place. At a red light, I glanced at the bag in the passenger seat. The scrapbook sat inside, slightly bent. I reached in, pulled it out, and opened to the last page. There, taped carefully, was a photo of us as kids. Sienna in a princess dress, me in a dinosaur hoodie, both of us grinning. I'd captioned it, "Before we knew better." I closed the book. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew what I wasn't going to do. I wasn't giving her a single cent. Not for the honeymoon, not for the wedding, not for anything. She'd thrown away my gift. Fine, I'd return the favour. But unlike her, I'd do it with style. "Jayla, guess how much money I've given Sienna since college?" Jayla didn't even look up from her iced coffee. "Oh God, don't tell me. I want to sleep tonight." I flipped my laptop around so she could see the spreadsheet. "That's just the last 5 years. Rent, emergency credit card bills, bachelorette trip deposits, the I lost my wallet incident in Vegas." Jayla squinted at the total. $9,472? Are you kidding me? Nope. And that doesn't include the time I paid her car insurance for 6 months. Jayla set her cup down. "Pearl, babe, that's not sisterhood. That's financial abuse." I gave a half shrug. She always made it seem like it was just temporary, like I was helping her get on her feet. Jayla leaned across the table. "She's been standing on your feet." We were sitting at our usual spot at the corner cafe, 2 blocks from my apartment. I'd brought the scrapbook with me, mostly out of spite. I started pulling it apart while we talked. Jayla watched as I slid out a photo of us at summer camp, then carefully peeled off the corner sticker holding an old concert ticket. "Wait, is that from the Paramore show in 2009? "Yep, and this," I held up a folded napkin, "is from our first dinner out without our parents. Sienna ordered lobster and made me split the bill." Jayla snorted. "Classic." I kept dismantling the pages, slower now. There was something weirdly satisfying about it, like reverse therapy. Then I found it. I paused, holding up a small envelope. "What's that?" Jayla asked. I opened it and pulled out a pressed flower and a thin gold chain. "It's Grandma's locket. I forgot I put it in here." Jayla's eyes widened. "Wait, is that real gold?" "Yeah, it was in a box of her old stuff. I thought it'd be meaningful." Jayla took it, examined the clasp. "Pearl, this is vintage. You could sell this." I blinked. I wasn't thinking about that. "Think about it now," she said. "You've got emotional trauma and literal treasure in here. Let's make some magic." 2 hours later, we were at a vintage jewellery shop downtown. The guy behind the counter had a man bun and a magnifying glass. He examined the locket, the charm bracelet, and a couple of other trinkets I'd added to the pile. "I can give you $1,800 for the lot," he said. Jayla nudged me. "That's almost the exact amount she demanded." I smiled. "Make it $2,000 and you've got a deal." He looked at me, then at the jewellery. "All right, done." We walked out with a check in my hand and a plan forming in my head. "I'm not going to her wedding," I said. Jayla stopped mid-step. "Wait, what?" "I'm not going. I'm not giving her money. I'm not giving her time. I'm done." Jayla stared at me like I'd just sprouted wings. "You're serious?" "I've never been more serious." She let out a low whistle. "Okay then, what are you going to do instead?" I pulled out my phone and opened a travel app. Something for me. We sat on a bench outside the shop while I scrolled through options. Bali was too far. Miami felt too close. Then I saw it. "Sedona," I said. Jayla leaned over. "Ooh, red rocks, spas, rich divorcee energy. I like it." I booked the trip right there. Luxury spa resort, yoga in the mornings, facials in the afternoons, 3 nights, paid in full with the exact amount I'd just gotten from the jewellery. Jayla clapped. "This is the energy I've been waiting for. Pearl 2.0. I grinned. She wanted money for her honeymoon. Great, I'm using it for mine. A solo honeymoon. Jayla raised her coffee in a toast. To self-love and not funding narcissists. I clinked my water bottle against her cup. Amen. That night, I went home and pulled out the last few things from the scrapbook. I found an old note from Sienna, written in purple gel pen. "Thanks for letting me borrow your top." I got a date. "You're the best lil sis." I stared at it for a long second. Then I tossed it in the trash. The next morning, I started packing. Not for the wedding, for Sedona. I booked a massage, scheduled a facial, and even added on a sound bath session, because why not? My phone buzzed with a text from Sienna. Sienna. "Hey, I forgive you for the ugly gift thing. Let's just move on. Bring the check to the rehearsal dinner, Kay." I stared at the message. Jayla was right. This wasn't sisterhood. This was a transaction. I typed back one sentence. "I'll see what I can do." Then I turned off my phone and slid it into a drawer. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. My phone lit up with Mom just as I was zipping up my suitcase. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. "Hi, Mum." "Pearl," she said, her voice already tight. "I just got off the phone with your sister." "Of course she did. She said you're being difficult about the wedding gift. What's going on?" I took a deep breath and sat on the edge of my bed. I gave her a handmade scrapbook. She didn't like it. She asked for cash instead. "Well," Mum said slowly, "you know how stressed she's been. Planning a wedding is a lot. Maybe she just didn't express herself the right way." "She threw the scrapbook at me, Mom." Silence. "She said it was childish, called it arts and crafts." More silence. Then, "Well, maybe it wasn't the right time for that kind of gift." I stared at the wall. "So now it's my fault?" "I'm not saying that. I just think you should be the bigger person. You always are." There it was, the family catchphrase. Be the bigger person. Translation: let Sienna walk all over you again. "I'm not giving her money," I said. Mum sighed like I'd told her I was dropping out of society to live in a cave. "Pearl, please, it's not about the money. It's about family, about showing support. I've shown support for 30 years. She's your sister." I stood up. "Exactly, and she should act like it." Mum's voice dropped to that guilt-laced whisper she used when she wanted to sound like a martyr. "You know how she gets. Just give her the check and let's keep the peace for one weekend." I walked to the window and looked out at the street. She doesn't want peace. She wants control. "Pearl?" "I'm not doing it." There was a pause, then a sharp, disappointed exhale. "I just hope you don't regret this later." I hung up without saying goodbye. That night, I got another text from Sienna. Sienna. "I just want to move forward. Bring the check to the rehearsal dinner and we can forget the drama." She was so sure I'd cave. I texted back, "I'll see what I can do." Then I slid my phone into airplane mode and tossed it onto the couch. The rehearsal dinner was Friday night. I showed up in a navy dress and nude heels, smiling like nothing was wrong. I even brought a bottle of wine. Cheap, but I wrapped it nicely. Sienna spotted me the second I walked in. Her eyes scanned my hands. No envelope. "Pearl," she said, air-kissing my cheek. "Glad you could make it." "Wouldn't miss it," I said. Jason came over grinning. "Hey, glad you're here. Sienna's been running around like crazy." I smiled at him. Poor guy, still clueless. Presley floated over in a cloud of perfume and highlighter. "OMG, Pearl, you look so cute tonight. Love that you're not going too glam. It's very chill bridesmaid energy." "I'm not a bridesmaid," I said. She blinked. "Oh, right, well, still cute." Dinner was a blur of wine, speeches, and Sienna laughing too loud at things that weren't funny. I sat between a second cousin and one of Jason's groomsmen, neither of whom knew what to say to me. I didn't mind. I was busy watching. Sienna floated from table to table, hugging people, reminding them about the honeymoon fund box that would be at the reception. "Just cash or checks, please," she said, like she was running a fundraiser. Presley leaned over at one point and whispered, "She's so excited for the 3K your family's contributing. She's already spent it in her head." I almost choked on my water. "Oh?" I said. Presley nodded. "Yeah, she told me your mum's giving 1,000 and you're doing 2. That's so generous." I smiled. She's always had a vivid imagination. Presley blinked, confused. I excused myself and went to the bathroom, locked the stall, sat on the toilet seat, fully clothed, and just breathed. This was it. The performance. The illusion. Everyone here thought I was the dutiful sister, the one who'd show up with a fat check and a forced smile. They had no idea I'd already booked a massage in Sedona for the same time as the ceremony. I walked out of the stall, washed my hands and looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't look angry. I looked calm, peaceful even. I dried my hands and walked back out like nothing had happened. After dinner, I hugged Jason goodbye. "Excited for tomorrow?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, just ready to get through it. Sienna's been intense. She wants everything perfect." "Yeah," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I just hope she slows down after this." I didn't say anything. Sienna hugged me last. Her voice was syrupy sweet. "So, you bringing the gift tomorrow? Or should I just check my Venmo?" I smiled. "I'll see what I can do." Then I walked to my car, heels clicking on the pavement. I didn't look back. The wedding venue looked like a Pinterest board threw up on a vineyard. White roses everywhere, gold chairs, a harpist playing something that sounded expensive. I walked in just long enough to be seen at the rehearsal dinner the night before. But today I was done pretending. The morning of the wedding, I woke up early, showered, and pulled out my suitcase. Everything was already packed. Breezy dresses, sandals, sunscreen, and a wide-brimmed hat I'd bought just for this trip. I double-checked my flight confirmation, then pulled up Instagram. I scheduled the post, a photo of my boarding pass, spa itinerary, and a caption that read, "Starting my own honeymoon. Self-love, people-pleasing." I stared at it for a second, then hit schedule. It would go live right as Sienna walked down the aisle. My phone buzzed with a message from her. Sienna. "Don't forget the card. Presley's collecting them at the reception table." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my group text with Jayla and Patrick, our cousin who somehow knew all the family tea. Me. "Boarding in 2 hours. Say hi to the drama for me." Jayla. "You're a legend. I'm bringing popcorn to the reception." Patrick. "I'll keep you posted. Already heard Sienna's been bragging about your gift. This is going to be delicious." I grinned and turned my phone to airplane mode. At the airport, I ordered a mimosa and sat near the gate, watching the wedding unravel from a distance. I imagined Presley in her sequined dress, fluttering around with a clipboard, barking orders at the caterers. I pictured my mum telling people I was running late or not feeling well. I imagined Sienna smiling through her teeth, wondering where my envelope was. I didn't feel bad, not even a little. The plane boarded. I slid into my seat, pulled out a book, and exhaled. Meanwhile, back at the venue, the whispers started early. Patrick told me later that people noticed I wasn't in the family photos. My mum told the photographer I was on my way, but by the time the ceremony started, people started asking questions. Presley, ever the PR manager, told a bridesmaid I had a last-minute emergency. Then someone saw my Instagram post. According to Patrick, it spread like wildfire. One of the groomsmen showed Jason. Jason showed the best man. The best man asked Presley, "Is this real?" Presley asked Sienna, and that's when the meltdown began. I was poolside sipping champagne when I got the first update. Patrick. "She just found out. She's pretending it's no big deal, but her eye is twitching." Jayla. "Your mum is telling people you had food poisoning. Someone showed her the post." Patrick. The look on her face, I wish I could frame it. I laughed out loud. The woman next to me raised an eyebrow. I just smiled and took another sip. Back at the reception, things got messier. Sienna made her grand entrance, all smiles and sparkles, but the mood had shifted. People were murmuring. Presley tried to keep the energy up, but the bridesmaids were too busy snickering over the Instagram post. Jason, sweet, clueless Jason, finally confronted Sienna. "You told me Pearl was giving you money," he said, according to Patrick. "You said she offered." Sienna scoffed. "She was supposed to. She's just being dramatic." Jason frowned. "You demanded it from her." "I didn't demand. You told her $2,000 or nothing." "She owed me," Sienna snapped. Jason stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Meanwhile, I was getting a hot stone massage. The spa music played softly. My phone was off. My body was loose. And for the first time in years, I wasn't carrying anyone else's weight. Later that night, I turned my phone back on. It lit up like a Christmas tree. "Jailer?" She cried in the bridal suite, full mascara meltdown, screamed at Presley, threw a wine glass. Patrick. Jason looked like he wanted to run. I think he finally saw the real her. "Mom, call me, now." I didn't. Instead, I posted a photo of my dinner, lobster tail, roasted vegetables, and a glass of wine, with the caption, "Cheers to choosing peace over performance." The next morning, I FaceTimed Jayla from my balcony. She answered with a grin. "You are a hero." "Tell me everything," Jayla launched into it. "Okay, so Presley tried to spin it like you had a mental breakdown. Then Patrick showed everyone your post. The bridesmaids were dying. One of them said, 'Honestly, I wish I'd skipped too.'" I laughed. "How's Sienna?" "Puffy, silent. Jason's been MIA since the cake cutting. I think he's rethinking his life." I leaned back in my chair. "Good." Jayla raised her mug. "To karma?" "To boundaries," I said, and then we both burst out laughing. Back at the wedding, Sienna was left with a pile of envelopes, some empty, some thin, and a husband who was suddenly asking real questions. And me? I was in Sedona, sun on my face, not a single regret in sight. I was halfway through my second mimosa when my phone buzzed again. "Mom, call me, this is serious." Sienna. "You ruined everything." Presley. "Wow, just wow." I locked the screen and dropped the phone face down on the side table. The view from my suite was too perfect to waste on notifications. Red rocks glowing in the sunset, warm breeze, and not a single screaming bridesmaid in sight. Earlier that morning, I'd laid out my plan like clockwork. I'd woken up before sunrise, showered, and made myself a cup of tea. No music, no distractions, just calm. I laid out the clothes I'd wear to the airport: linen pants, soft tee, sandals. I packed the last few things into my carry-on: sunscreen, a book, a sleep mask. Then I opened my laptop and cued the post. It was a photo of my spa itinerary, the boarding pass tucked underneath, and a caption that read, "Can't make the wedding, prior commitment, starting my own honeymoon, self-love, people-pleasing." I scheduled it for 3:55 p.m, 5 minutes before the ceremony was set to start. I stared at the screen for a second before closing the laptop. Then I picked up my phone, opened my messages, and typed one final text to Sienna. "Me. Can't make the wedding. Prior commitment." I hit send. Then I blocked her number, blocked Mom too, blocked Presley for good measure. I turned on Do Not Disturb, zipped my suitcase, and walked out the door. At the airport, I bought a green juice and sat at the gate like I hadn't just detonated a social grenade. The flight was smooth. I spent most of it reading and ignoring the growing temptation to check my phone. By the time I landed in Arizona, the post had gone live. The comments were already rolling in. Jayla. You did it. Patrick. I'm at the reception. Everyone's talking. Sienna's face when she saw the post. Priceless. Bridesmaid. I barely knew. Honestly, iconic. I turned off notifications again. I wasn't here to bask in the chaos. I was here to breathe. The resort was everything I hoped for. Soft robes, citrus-infused water in the lobby, a welcome drink with a sprig of rosemary. The receptionist handed me a key card and said, "You're booked for the Serenity package, daily massage, facials, yoga, and sound healing." "Perfect," I said. I checked into my suite, kicked off my shoes, and stood on the balcony for a moment. The silence was unreal. No screaming, no guilt-tripping, no one asking for money. Just me. Later that night, I FaceTimed Jayla. She answered from her car, still in her bridesmaid dress, hair frizzed, makeup smudged. "Girl," she said, "you have no idea what you just caused." "Tell me everything," she grinned. "Okay, so first of all, Presley tried to play it off like you had a mental health emergency and needed space." I laughed. "That's rich." "Then someone showed your post to the groomsman. Jason saw it. He looked like he'd been hit by a bus." "Did he say anything?" "Yeah. He walked straight to Sienna and asked, 'Did you demand money from Pearl?'" I raised my eyebrows. "And?" "She tried to spin it, said you were being selfish and ruining her moment. Jason didn't buy it." Jayla paused, grinning wider. Then he said, "If she needed to escape this circus, maybe I should have gone with her." I nearly dropped my phone. "He said that?" "Word for word, babe." I let out a low whistle. "Wow." "Oh, and your mum, she told people you had food poisoning. Then someone showed her your post. She turned red, like tomato red." I leaned back on the bed, laughing. "I should have done this years ago." Jayla nodded. "You're free now. How does it feel?" I looked around at the soft lighting, the spa menu on the nightstand, the sound of wind rustling through the trees outside. "Peaceful," I said. The next morning I got a massage, 90 minutes, hot stones. At one point I think I levitated. Afterward, I sat by the pool with a smoothie and let the sun warm every inch of my skin. I watched a lizard scurry across the patio and felt, for the first time in forever, completely still. Then I checked the group chat. "Patrick, update. Sienna flipped out when she realized your envelope wasn't in the gift box. She made Presley count them twice." Jayla. "She cornered your mum and asked where the money was. Your mum actually said maybe she finally got tired of being used." I blinked. "Me." "Wait, Mom said that?" "Patrick." "Yup, out loud in front of Aunt Denise." I stared at the screen, stunned. Maybe the spell had finally broken. Maybe when I walked away, I didn't just save myself. I showed everyone what Sienna really was. That night, I ordered room service and sat on the balcony with a glass of wine. I watched the sun melt behind the rocks and thought about how long I'd let guilt dictate my life. Not anymore. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to fight. I just needed to leave. And that, it turned out, was loud enough. Patrick called me from the parking lot of the reception, whispering like he was in a spy movie. "She's losing it." I put him on speaker and set the phone on the patio table next to my mimosa. "Define losing it." Patrick exhaled. "Okay, so first she tried to play it cool, acted like you were just running late. Then someone showed her the Instagram post. She froze, like full statue mode." I sipped my drink. "And?" "She stormed off. Presley followed her. 10 minutes later, they came back and started counting the envelopes." I laughed. "You're kidding." "Nope. Presley had a clipboard. I think she had a whole spreadsheet. They were whispering, flipping through cards, checking names. I could practically see it. Sienna in her sparkling white dress, flipping through wedding cards like a tax auditor." I leaned back in my chair, soaking in the Arizona sun. So what happened when they realized mine was missing? She said, and I quote, "Pearl must have mailed it. She's just being dramatic." I snorted. Sure, that tracks. Then Jason walked over. My ears perked up. What did he say? He asked why you weren't there. Sienna said you bailed for attention. Jason didn't buy it. He said you told him at the rehearsal dinner you were excited. Then he asked Presley if you'd said anything to her. And Presley looked like she swallowed a lemon. She said, "Pearl's always been weird." Nice. Jason didn't let it go. He said, "Did she give you guys money?" Presley said no. Then he asked Sienna flat out, "Did you demand money from your sister?" I sat up straighter. And what did she say? She said, "She's family. She owes me." I blinked. She actually said that? Loudly, in front of the DJ? I burst out laughing. "Oh my God," Patrick chuckled. Then Jason walked off. He hasn't spoken to her since. He's been talking to the best man and drinking straight whiskey. I shook my head. He's seeing it now. Everyone is. The bridesmaids were whispering about your post. One of them said, "Honestly, Pearl made the right call." I grinned. "Tell them I said thanks." "Oh, and your mum tried to cover for you again, told Aunt Denise you were sick with a stomach bug." Then someone showed her your post. She turned purple. "Did she say anything?" Patrick laughed. She said, "That girl is going to kill me." Then she sat down and didn't move for 20 minutes. I stood up and stretched. Sounds like a great party. Oh, it gets better. During the cake cutting, Sienna tried to smile for photos but kept glancing at the gift table. Then she whispered something to Presley, who ran back and counted the envelopes. Again. Twice. 3 times now. I shook my head. She really thought I'd show up with a fat check and a fake smile. She underestimated you. I looked out at the red rocks glowing under the setting sun. She always did. An hour later, Jayla sent me a video. It was shaky, taken from behind a floral centerpiece, but the audio was clear. Sienna stood at the head table, wineglass in hand, wild-eyed. "I just think it's funny," she said, voice rising, "how some people, family, can't even show up for the most important day of your life." Jason stood next to her, stiff, arms crossed. Presley tried to pull her back. "Babe, let's just—" "No," Sienna snapped. "She made this about her. She's always been jealous, always needed to make everything about her." Someone in the background coughed. A few guests looked away. The DJ awkwardly turned the music volume down. Jayla's voice, off-camera, whispered, "This is better than Netflix." By the time the reception ended, my phone was blowing up. Patrick. "She cried in the bridal suite. Lock the door. Presley's trying to calm her down." Jayla. Jason left early, didn't even stay for the sparkler exit. Bridesmaid again. "Pearl, you won the wedding." I opened our cousin group chat. Someone had changed the name to Pearl's Wedding Now. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my drink. The next morning, I checked my phone while sipping coffee on the balcony. A new message had popped up in the anonymous group chat someone started for the bridal party. Unknown. That meltdown was iconic. Pearl actually won the wedding. Another. "Is she single? Asking for my brother." Jayla. "She's booked and busy, babe." I spent the rest of the day hiking, getting another massage, and eating a ridiculously overpriced avocado toast. I didn't check my phone again until sunset. There was one new message from an unknown number. Unknown. "You hurt a lot of people. Hope it was worth it." I blocked it without replying. It was worth it. Every second. The wedding was over. The guests had gone home. The flowers were already wilting in their centerpieces. But Sienna, She was just getting started with her breakdown. I was lying face down on a massage table in Sedona, warm oil being poured down my back, when Jayla called. I usually wouldn't answer, but I had a feeling. I slid my phone off the side table and answered with a whisper. "What now?" Jayla didn't even say hello. She flipped out like full meltdown, screaming, crying, accusing people. I propped myself up on one elbow. "At who?" "Everyone," she said. "She accused Presley of stealing envelopes, said someone must have taken your card." I blinked. She really thinks I mailed her a check. She thinks someone stole the check you didn't give. I flopped back down and laughed into the massage table. Jayla kept going. She went down the list of guests, asking who gave what. She even asked Jason's aunt how much she put in the envelope. "You're kidding. Not even a little." She said, "I just need to know who actually supports me." Jason pulled her aside, and they had a full argument in the hallway. People heard everything. What did he say? He said, "I married you, not your Venmo." Then he asked if she even cared about the day or just the money. I whistled. Ouch. She said, "You don't get it. Pearl humiliated me. She made me look like a beggar." I sat up now, the massage forgotten. She made herself look like a beggar. Exactly. I grabbed a robe and walked out onto the balcony. So what now? Are they still married? Jayla hesitated. They're technically married, but Jason left the hotel last night. He booked a separate room. They haven't spoken since. I stared out at the desert. Wow, she's spiraling, Jayla said. Presley tried to calm her down, but Sienna turned on her too, said, "You were supposed to manage this. You let her embarrass me." I snorted. She wanted a wedding planner, not a friend. Presley told her she was acting like a spoiled brat. Then she left. Presley left? Yep, took off her heels and walked out barefoot. It was kind of beautiful. I smiled. Karma's not always a thunderbolt. Sometimes it's a barefoot bridesmaid walking across a gravel driveway. Jayla laughed. You're a poet now? I'm relaxed. Well, enjoy it. You earned this. That night, I posted a photo of the sunset from my balcony. No caption, just light and sky and silence. People flooded the comments. Cousin Leah. This is the energy I want in my life. Jayla. Queen behaviour. Random groomsman. Wish I'd gone with you. I didn't respond to any of them. I didn't need to. Meanwhile, back home, Sienna was unravelling. Patrick sent me a voice memo the next day. She's calling everyone, trying to do damage control, told Aunt Denise you were mentally unstable and needed help. I rolled my eyes. She told Jason's mum you were jealous of her happiness. Jason's mum said she looked pretty happy in Sedona. I laughed. She saw the post. Everyone saw the post. The next morning, I checked my email and saw a subject line that made me pause. Proposal. Book idea. Boundaries and burnout. It was from a small publishing house I'd submitted to months ago. I'd written a sample chapter about emotional labour in families, titled The Cost of Being the Responsible One. I opened the email. They wanted to offer me a deal. I sat there, stunned, the spa music still playing softly from my Bluetooth speaker. Jayla called right as I was processing it. Guess what? I said. What? I got a book deal. She screamed so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Shut up! Shut up! I'm serious. Pearl, you're about to be a published author. And the family legend who skipped the wedding. You're unstoppable. I laughed. Feels like it. Jayla paused. So, what happens when you go back? I looked out at the mountains. I don't know, but I'm not scared of her anymore. That night, I took a long bath, poured myself a glass of wine, and scrolled through the anonymous group chat one last time. Someone had posted a meme. A photo of a woman walking away from a burning building with sunglasses on. Caption: Pearl walking out of the family group chat like... I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. The comments underneath were even better. She didn't attend the wedding, but she gave us all a gift. I aspire to Pearl's level of peace. Honestly, she's the main character now. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I just smiled, locked my phone, and went to bed. Sienna had always counted on me to be quiet, to keep the peace, to write the check. But this time, I chose myself. And that silence, it was the loudest thing I'd ever done. I was unpacking my suitcase when the doorbell rang. No knock, just the bell, sharp and impatient. I peeked through the peephole. Sienna. She stood there in flats and sunglasses, arms crossed, shoulders tense. I opened the door halfway, blocking most of the entry with my body. "Hi," I said. She pulled off her sunglasses like it was a dramatic movie scene. "We need to talk." I didn't move. "About what?" She pushed a breath through her nose. "You humiliated me." I tilted my head. "No, you did that yourself." Her jaw clenched. "You abandoned your family. You bailed on my wedding. You made me look like a fool." I leaned against the doorframe. "You screamed at me over a scrapbook, demanded money like it was owed. You look like a fool." She stepped forward, but I didn't move. I was stressed. Weddings are a lot. You blindsided me. I crossed my arms. "You asked for $2,000. You threw my gift in the trash." "I didn't throw it. You tossed it on the floor and called it arts and crafts." She blinked. "It wasn't about the gift, it was about the principle." I laughed. "Exactly. And the principle is, I'm not your ATM anymore." Sienna's face twisted. "You think you're better than me now?" "No," I said. "I think I'm done with you." That landed. She stepped back like I'd slapped her. "You didn't just skip the wedding," she said. "You made a show of it. You posted about it. You wanted people to talk." "No," I said. "I wanted peace. I just didn't care if people talked." She stared at me for a long second. Then her voice dropped. "Jason's not speaking to me." I didn't reply. "He said I embarrassed him, that I made the whole day about money." I raised an eyebrow. "Did you?" She didn't answer. "I'm not the villain here," she said, quieter now. "No," I said. "You're the consequence." Her eyes flashed. "So that's it? You're just walking away?" "I already did." She looked around like she might scream, but nothing came out. Just silence. She finally turned and walked back to her car. No goodbye, no apology. I closed the door and locked it. Later that afternoon, Jayla showed up with 2 coffees and a bag of croissants. "Tell me everything," she said, kicking off her shoes. "She came to the door," I said, handing her a napkin. "Tried to spin it, blamed me, said Jason's mad, still didn't apologize." Jayla bit into a croissant. "Of course not. Narcissists don't do accountability." "She said I made a show of it." Jayla snorted. "You made a statement." "There's a difference." I smiled. "She's unravelling." "She's exposed," Jayla corrected. "She's always been this way, now everyone sees it." I sat down on the couch. "She asked if I was just walking away." Jayla looked at me. "And you are, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, I am." She raised her coffee. "To walking away." I clinked my mug against hers. "To never going back." That night, I got an email from my editor. Subject: "Cover concept attached." I opened the file. The book title was in bold across a soft, minimalist background. The Cost of Yes, How I Stopped Saving Everyone Else and Started Saving Myself. I stared at it for a long second, then clicked Download. I sent the image to Jayla. She replied with a single word: chills. The next morning, I checked my mail. Bills, a coupon for a pizza place I never go to, and one small white envelope with no return address. I opened it slowly. Inside was a blank wedding thank you card. No message, no signature, just empty. I stared at it, then let out a laugh, short and sharp. I walked to my bookshelf, tucked it between two books, and stepped back. It sat there like a trophy, not of the wedding, of the win.
The master bedroom needs to be cleared by tonight, my mother-in-law Barbara announced, marching into my house with moving boxes. Amanda needs her space properly set up. She gestured to the young woman trailing behind her, who at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. I stood in my kitchen, coffee mug gripped tightly in my hand, watching this surreal scene unfold. Amanda, my husband's girlfriend of 6 months, shifted nervously from foot to foot, her designer handbag clutched like a shield. "And where exactly am I supposed to go?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. Barbara waved dismissively toward the back of the house. "The garage has that small room attached. That should be fine for now, until you figure out your next steps." My name is Olivia, and at 34, I was watching my mother-in-law try to install my husband's girlfriend in my own home. The same home I'd spent the last 8 years turning into a sanctuary. The same home that now felt like it was being invaded. "This is my house," I said firmly, setting down my coffee before I gave in to the urge to throw it. Barbara's laugh was sharp and cruel. "This house belongs to the family. Michael needs it now for his new life. You should be grateful we're letting you stay at all." Michael, my husband of 10 years, had moved out 3 months ago, claiming he needed space to find himself. Apparently, he'd found himself in the arms of his 25-year-old yoga instructor. I'd known about Amanda for weeks, but them trying to move her into my home, was a new level of audacity. "I'm not moving to the garage," I stated, crossing my arms. "And Amanda isn't moving in here. Don't be difficult, Olivia." Barbara stepped closer, her perfectly manicured finger pointing at my face. "This house has been in our family for generations. Michael's grandfather built it. You're just the soon-to-be ex-wife. You have no right to it." What Barbara didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Michael's grandfather Thomas had been more than just the man who built this house. He'd been my mentor, my friend, and in many ways, more of a parent to me than Barbara had ever been to Michael. I'd spent countless evenings with Thomas in his final years, listening to his stories, learning about the family history, and helping him organize his affairs. Barbara had been too busy with her social clubs to visit him, and Michael had always found excuses not to stop by. But I was there, 3 times a week, until the very end. "The movers will be here this afternoon," Barbara continued, already measuring the windows for new curtains. "Amanda has excellent taste. This place could use a more youthful touch." I watched as Amanda ran her hand along the kitchen counter, the same counter where Thomas had taught me to make his secret recipe pasta sauce. Every surface in this house held memories, not just of my marriage, but of the real family I found here. "I have some work calls to make," I said calmly, picking up my coffee again. "I'll be in my office." "Your office?" Barbara scoffed. "That's going to be Amanda's yoga room. She'll need somewhere to train her clients." I closed my door on Barbara's continued demands and pulled out my phone. With trembling fingers, I dialed a number I'd memorized months ago. "Mr. Patterson? It's Olivia. I think it's time." The lawyer's voice was calm and reassuring. "I was wondering when you'd call. Shall I proceed with opening the trust documents?" "Yes," I replied, hearing Barbara and Amanda's voices float up from downstairs as they discussed paint colors. "It's definitely time." What they didn't know was that Thomas, in his final months, had done more than just share stories with me. He'd seen exactly who his family had become. Barbara's materialistic manipulation, Michael's weak-willed selfishness, and he planned accordingly. I hung up with Mr. Patterson and opened my desk drawer, pulling out an old envelope. Inside was a letter Thomas had given me 2 weeks before he passed away. "Only open this when you need it most," he'd said, his wise eyes twinkling with that familiar mix of mischief and kindness. I'd known this day was coming. I'd seen the signs in Michael's growing distance, in Barbara's increasingly hostile behavior. Thomas had seen it too, long before any of us were ready to admit it. Downstairs, I heard the front door open and Michael's voice join the others. "The movers are on their way," he called out. "Mom, did you tell Olivia about the garage?" I ran my fingers over Thomas's letter, remembering his last words to me. "Sometimes, my dear, justice comes in unexpected ways. Just be patient and trust in what we've planned." The sound of footsteps on the stairs told me they were coming to confront me again. I tucked the letter away and squared my shoulders. Let them come. Let them make their plans and measure their curtains. The trust documents would be unsealed tomorrow morning, and then they'd learn what Thomas had known all along. That family isn't about blood or marriage. It's about who shows up, who cares, who stays. Barbara's sharp knock rattled my office door. "Olivia, the movers need to get in there." I smiled, thinking of Thomas and a future he'd helped secure. "Come in, Barbara. We need to talk about the house." The door swung open, and there they stood. Barbara, Michael, and Amanda, ready to claim what they thought was rightfully theirs. They had no idea what was coming. "What's there to talk about?" Michael asked, leaning against my office doorframe with that familiar look of smug confidence. "Mom's right. This is a family house. You're not family anymore." I sat calmly at my desk, fingers tracing the edge of Thomas's letter. "Actually, there's quite a lot to discuss. Mr. Patterson, the family lawyer, will be here in 20 minutes. Barbara's perfectly penciled eyebrows shot up. "Patterson? Why would that old fool be coming here?" "Because I called him," I replied simply, "and he's bringing some important documents that all of you need to see." Michael straightened up, his smugness wavering slightly. He remembered Mr. Patterson from his grandfather's funeral, the stern-faced lawyer who'd given him a disapproving look when he checked his phone during the eulogy. "Whatever game you're playing, Olivia," Barbara started, but the doorbell cut her off. "That'll be him now," I said, standing up. "Shall we move this to the living room?" They followed me downstairs, Barbara whispering furiously to Michael while Amanda trailed behind, clutching her designer bag like a security blanket. Mr. Patterson stood at the door, his weathered briefcase in hand, looking exactly as he had the day Thomas had introduced us. "Mrs. Collins," he nodded to me, then turned a cool gaze to the others. "Barbara, Michael. And this must be the girlfriend." Amanda flushed red as Barbara bristled. "Now see here, Patterson." "Please," he interrupted, "let's all sit down. We have important matters to discuss." Once everyone was seated, Barbara perched on the edge of the sofa like she was ready to pounce, Michael slouched in his father's old armchair, Amanda hovering uncertainly nearby. Mr. Patterson opened his briefcase. "Before his death," the lawyer began, "Thomas Collins made certain arrangements regarding this property, arrangements he specifically asked me not to reveal until they became necessary." "What arrangements?" Michael demanded. "Grandpa left everything to the family." Mr. Patterson pulled out a thick envelope. "Actually, Michael, your grandfather left this house in a very specific trust. A trust that named one particular person as its executor and primary beneficiary." Barbara's face went pale. "That's impossible. This house has always passed through the male line. It belongs to Michael." "Not according to this," Mr. Patterson said, removing several documents from the envelope. "Thomas was quite clear about his wishes. The house and everything in it was to be placed in trust for the person who, in his words, showed true understanding of what family means." He turned to me, extending the papers. "Olivia has the name trustee and beneficiary. These belong to you." The silence in the room was deafening. I took the documents, remembering all those evenings with Thomas, how he'd watched me care for his home, tend his garden, listen to his stories while his own family was too busy to visit. "This is ridiculous," Barbara exploded, jumping to her feet. "She manipulated him. She took advantage of a sick old man." Mr. Patterson's voice cut through her accusations like steel. "Thomas was of completely sound mind when he made these arrangements. In fact, he specifically anticipated this reaction." He pulled out another paper. He left a letter explaining his decision. "Shall I read it?" Michael was staring at me, his face a mix of shock and dawning comprehension. He remembered all the times I'd invited him to visit his grandfather, all the dinners he'd skipped, all the family stories he'd been too busy to hear. "To my family," Mr. Patterson read, "if you're hearing this letter being read, it means you've forgotten what truly matters. This house was built not just with bricks and mortar, but with love, with the hope of creating a place where family would grow and thrive. Olivia understood this. While you were all busy with your own lives, she sat with me, learned our history, and showed me what it means to be truly family. The house is hers to use as she sees fit. Perhaps this will teach you that family is earned, not simply claimed by blood or marriage. Barbara sank back onto the sofa, her face ashen. Michael stood up abruptly, running his hands through his hair in that nervous gesture I knew so well. The movers, Amanda said suddenly, her voice small. They're supposed to be coming. You should probably cancel them, I suggested quietly, since you won't be moving in after all. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. There's more. The trust also stipulates that any attempt to contest these arrangements will result in the house being donated to the Historical Society. Thomas was quite thorough in ensuring his wishes would be respected. Barbara's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Michael looked lost, like a child who'd just been told Santa wasn't real. Amanda had already grabbed her phone, presumably to cancel the movers. Now, I said, standing up, I think it's time for everyone to leave. I have some redecorating to do. I looked directly at Barbara, and I won't be needing that garage room after all. The days following Mr. Patterson's revelation brought a parade of reactions from the family. Barbara launched into damage control mode, calling relatives to spin her version of events before word got out that she tried to move her son's girlfriend into my house. Michael oscillated between angry texts and pathetic attempts at reconciliation. We can still work this out, he wrote one evening. The house is big enough for both of us. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I spent my time restoring the house to the way Thomas had loved it. I rehung his old photographs that Barbara had deemed outdated. I brought his favorite armchair back from the attic where Michael had banished it. Each change felt like reclaiming not just my space, but Thomas's legacy. A week after the trust revelation, I was tending Thomas's rose garden when a car pulled into the driveway. It was Amanda, looking considerably less confident than the day she'd walked in planning to take my bedroom. Can we talk? She asked, hovering by the garden gate. I gestured to the patio chairs. 5 minutes. She sat, fidgeting with her bracelet. I didn't know, she burst out. About the house, about Thomas, about any of it. Michael told me you were just his bitter ex who wouldn't let go. And you believed him, I said, not unkindly. Just like you believed Barbara when she said you could move in here. Amanda looked down. I'm starting to see why Thomas chose you. Michael. He's not who I thought he was. Last night he suggested we try to contest the trust anyway, said we could figure out a way around it. I couldn't help but laugh. That sounds like Michael, always looking for the easy way out. I ended it, she said quietly. This whole thing opened my eyes. I don't want to be part of a family that treats people this way. As she left, I thought about Thomas and how he would have appreciated the irony. His final gift hadn't just secured my future, it had revealed the true character of everyone involved. The following Sunday, I hosted my first dinner party in the house since everything happened. I invited Mr. Patterson and his wife, along with a few close friends who'd supported me through the divorce. As we sat around Thomas's old dining table, sharing stories and laughter, I felt his presence in every corner of the house. Barbara made one final attempt at confrontation, showing up unannounced one morning with a manila envelope. These are photos, she announced, dumping them on my kitchen counter. Proof that you manipulated Thomas. I'm taking them to my lawyer. I calmly slid them back toward her. Go ahead. And while you're there, ask your lawyer about the consequences of contesting the trusts. I'm sure the Historical Society would love to give tours of this place. She left, but not before I saw the defeat in her eyes. She knew she'd lost, not just the house, but the power she'd wielded over the family for so long. Michael moved to a different city shortly after. I heard through mutual friends that he was telling people he'd left the house to me out of kindness, rewriting history to protect his ego. That was fine by me. I had the truth, and more importantly, I had Thomas's legacy. 1 year after the failed attempt to move Amanda in, I sat in Thomas's study, surrounded by his books and mementos. The house felt more like home than ever, filled with the warmth and history he'd always cherished. I opened his letter again, the one he'd given me before he died, and read the last lines that had given me strength through everything. My dear Olivia, a house is more than walls and a roof. It's a vessel for love, for memories, for the kind of family we choose rather than the one we're born into. You understood that when the others couldn't. Take care of our home, and let it take care of you. With all my love, Thomas. I folded the letter carefully and looked around the study, at the life Thomas had built and entrusted to me. Barbara and Michael had seen this house as a possession to be claimed. They never understood that it was really a gift to be earned through love, respect, and genuine care. Outside, Thomas's roses were blooming, their fragrance drifting through the open window. The house felt alive, not with the chaos Barbara and Amanda would have brought, but with the peaceful energy Thomas had always cultivated here. In the end, the property trust hadn't just given me a house. It had given me the freedom to honor Thomas's memory in the way he deserved. And somewhere, I knew he was smiling, satisfied that his home had ended up exactly where it belonged. "You're just a gold digger," my mother-in-law Patricia sneered, waving my late grandmother's jewelry box in front of me. "These beautiful pieces belong to someone who deserves them, my Emily." I sat quietly at her elaborate dining room table, watching as she roughly handled the antique rosewood box that had been in my family for generations. My name is Isabella Martinez, and at 34, I was watching my mother-in-law attempt to steal what she thought was my inheritance to benefit her precious daughter. What she didn't know was that I was perfectly calm for a reason. "These will help Emily with the down payment on her dream house," Patricia continued, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "After all, she's actually blood family, unlike you." She opened the box, displaying the glittering pieces inside with obvious greed in her eyes. I took a sip of the tea she'd served, hiding my smile behind the cup. "Are you sure you want to do this, Patricia?" I asked quietly. "Those pieces have been in my grandmother's family for generations." "Oh please," she scoffed, picking up what appeared to be a stunning diamond necklace. "Your grandmother was just a small-town jewelry maker. These are probably cheap costume pieces anyway, but they'll fetch enough for Emily's house deposit." If only she knew, my grandmother hadn't been just a small-town jewelry maker. She'd been one of the most skilled artisans in her field, known for her ability to create perfect replicas of priceless pieces. She'd also been incredibly wise about protecting her real treasures. "Besides," Patricia continued, her voice sharp, "these should have gone to Emily anyway. You've been married to my son for 5 years, and what have you contributed? No children, just your little teaching job. Emily needs these more than you do." I thought about the real jewelry collection safely stored in a bank vault my grandmother had set up years ago. She taught me well about protecting what mattered. "Every piece in that box has a story," I said softly. "Are you sure you don't want to hear them before you sell them?" Patricia rolled her eyes. "Stories don't pay for houses, Isabella. I've already contacted an auction house. They're coming tomorrow to collect everything." She closed the box with a decisive snap. "Maybe this will teach you that in this family, blood matters more than marriage." I stood up, smoothing my skirt. "You might want to check the box again, Patricia. There's more to it than meets the eye." "What are you babbling about?" she demanded, but I could see a flicker of uncertainty cross her face. "My grandmother always said that true value lies beneath the surface," I replied, heading for the door. "You might want to look more carefully before you contact that auction house." "Are you threatening me?" Patricia's voice rose, her face flushing red. "Wait until I tell David about this. He'll finally see what kind of woman he married." I paused at the door, thinking about my husband, who was currently on a business trip. "By all means, tell David. In fact, I encourage you to have everything properly appraised before you make any decisions." As I drove home, I couldn't help but smile, remembering the day my grandmother had shown me the truth about her jewelry collection. I was 16, and she called me into her workshop, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Bella," she'd said, holding up 2 identical diamond necklaces, "which one is real?" I'd studied them carefully, but couldn't tell the difference. That's when she taught me her most valuable lesson about protecting what matters. Every piece in her collection had a perfect replica, and only she knew which was which. She'd spent years creating them, preparing for exactly this kind of situation. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "Stop trying to scare me with your ridiculous hints. These jewels are being sold tomorrow, and that's final." I didn't reply. Instead, I called Laura, my grandmother's old friend who worked at the auction house Patricia had contacted. "It's starting," I told her. "She's bringing in the replicas tomorrow." Laura chuckled. "Don't worry, honey. I'll make sure everything goes exactly as your grandmother planned." That evening, as I sat in my study looking at photos of my grandmother, I remembered her words. People who take what isn't theirs often learn their lessons the hard way. Patricia was about to learn just how right my grandmother had been. My phone rang again. It was David. "Bella, my mother just called me, ranting about you threatening her over some jewelry. What's going on?" I took a deep breath. "Your mother is trying to sell my grandmother's jewelry collection to help Emily buy a house. She took the box from our house while you were away." There was a long pause. "She did what?" "Bella, I'm so sorry. I'll talk to her, make her return everything." "No," I said firmly. "Let her go through with it. Trust me, David. Sometimes people need to learn lessons for themselves." "What are you planning?" he asked, knowing me well enough to hear the certainty in my voice. "Just wait," I replied. "Tomorrow is going to be very interesting." As I hung up, I walked to my home office and opened my grandmother's old diary. Inside was a detailed inventory of every piece in her collection, both the originals and the replicas. Patricia thought she was selling precious jewelry to help her daughter, but what she didn't know was that my grandmother had designed each replica with a special feature, a kind of signature that would be impossible to miss during a proper appraisal. Tomorrow, Patricia would learn exactly what happened to people who tried to steal from my grandmother's legacy. I smiled, thinking about the secret compartment in the box that Patricia hadn't found yet. The one containing my grandmother's letter explaining exactly what she'd done with the real jewelry collection. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about confrontation. It's about letting people walk right into the traps they set for themselves. The next morning, I arrived at the auction house just as Patricia was strutting through the front doors, the rosewood box clutched triumphantly in her arms. Emily trailed behind her, already dressed like she owned a mansion instead of the small apartment she shared with 3 roommates. Laura met them at the reception desk, her professional demeanor perfect as she welcomed them. I stayed in the background, watching the scene unfold. "These are museum-quality pieces," Patricia announced loudly, setting the box on Laura's desk. "My mother-in-law collected them over many years." The lie rolled smoothly off her tongue, as though she hadn't spent years dismissing my grandmother as a simple craftswoman. Laura opened the box carefully, her trained eyes scanning each piece. I saw the moment she spotted my grandmother's signature marks, the tiny, almost invisible details that distinguished the replicas from the originals. Her expression remained neutral, but I caught the slight twitch of her lips. "Very interesting pieces," Laura murmured, lifting the diamond necklace Patricia had been so excited about. "Let me call our senior appraiser, Mr. Thompson. He specializes in vintage jewelry." Patricia preened, already counting the money in her head. "Emily, darling, soon you'll have your dream house. Won't that be wonderful?" Emily nodded eagerly. "Maybe we can even get that 5-bedroom in the gated community, the one with the pool." I had to hold back a laugh. They were about to learn an expensive lesson about counting chickens before they hatched. Mr. Thompson arrived, his white gloves and magnifying glass at the ready. He began examining each piece methodically, his expression growing more intrigued with each item he inspected. "Fascinating," he said finally, setting down a sapphire bracelet. "These are some of the finest replicas I've ever seen." The word replicas hit Patricia like a physical blow. "What do you mean, replicas?" she demanded, her voice rising. "These are genuine antiques." Mr. Thompson adjusted his glasses. "Oh, they're certainly valuable in their own right. These are masterwork replicas crafted by someone with extraordinary skill. Each piece has a tiny maker's mark. See here." He pointed to a nearly invisible symbol on the necklace. "This is the signature of Elena Martinez, one of the most renowned jewelry replicators of her time." Patricia's face went from red to white in seconds. "No, that's impossible. These are real." "Actually," Laura interjected smoothly, "Elena Martinez was known for creating perfect replicas of famous pieces. Her work is highly valued in certain circles, but not quite in the way you might have hoped." She named a figure that was about 1/10 of what Patricia had clearly been expecting. Emily's dreams of a poolside mansion visibly crumbled. "But Mom, you said." "Where are the real pieces?" Patricia whirled to face me, finally noticing my presence. You know about this." I stepped forward, pulling out my grandmother's letter from my bag. "I tried to tell you to check the box more carefully, Patricia. Maybe now you'd like to look at that secret compartment." Laura demonstrated how to press the hidden catch, revealing a small space beneath the jewelry trays. Inside lay a single envelope yellowed with age. Patricia snatched it up, her hands shaking as she read my grandmother's elegant handwriting. To whoever thinks they can take what isn't theirs, the real collection is exactly where it belongs, safe from those who value gold over family. What you hold are my masterworks, replicas I created to protect my true legacy. Remember, not all that glitters is gold, and not all family is bound by blood. You tricked me, Patricia's voice echoed through the auction house. No, I replied calmly. You tried to steal what wasn't yours, and you didn't even bother to learn its true history. My grandmother spent years creating these replicas because she knew someday someone would try to take advantage of her legacy. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat. I would point out that these replicas are still quite valuable to collectors. Elena Martinez's work is highly sought after in certain circles. But Patricia wasn't listening. She was too busy fumbling with her phone, probably trying to reach David. I'd already texted him the whole story, including photos of the letter and his mother's attempt to sell my inheritance. Emily slumped in her chair, her dreams of instant wealth evaporating. Mom, what are we going to do about the house? I already told everyone. Perhaps, I suggested quietly, this is a good time to learn about earning things for yourself, instead of taking them from others. Patricia grabbed the box, her movements jerky with rage. This isn't over, she threatened, heading for the door. David will hear all about how you humiliated us. I watched them leave, feeling oddly peaceful. Laura approached me, holding back a smile. Your grandmother would have loved this, she said. She always said the best lessons come from our own mistakes. She also said that true value isn't about what something costs. I replied, thinking of the real jewelry collection still safely stored away. It's about what it teaches us. As I headed home, I thought about how my grandmother's wisdom had extended far beyond her craft. She'd known that someday someone would try to take advantage of her legacy. Instead of just locking everything away, she created this elaborate lesson, turning her skill into both protection and education. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Just talked to Mom. Coming home early. We need to have a family meeting. I smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning of some much-needed changes in our family dynamic. Patricia had learned an expensive lesson about greed and assumptions. Now it was time to see if she'd learned anything about the true meaning of family. David came home the next day, his face etched with a mix of exhaustion and determination. We sat in our living room as I showed him everything. My grandmother's letter, photos of the real jewelry collection, and most importantly, the security camera footage of his mother taking a box from our house while we were away. I knew she could be difficult, he said, running a hand through his hair. But this, stealing from our house, trying to sell your inheritance, I never thought she'd go this far. It's been building for years, I replied softly. The snide comments about my family, the constant favoritism toward Emily, the way she's tried to undermine our marriage. This was just her biggest move yet. Before David could respond, our doorbell rang. Patricia stood there, Emily trailing behind her like a chastened shadow. Gone was the triumphant smirk she'd worn yesterday. Now she looked like someone who'd swallowed something bitter. Well, she demanded, pushing past us into the living room. Are you happy now, Isabella? You've humiliated us in front of everyone. David stepped forward, his voice firm. No, Mom, you humiliated yourself. You broke into our house and tried to steal from my wife. Steal? Patricia's voice rose. I was trying to help your sister. Family helps family. Yes, I interjected calmly. Family does help family. But you've never seen me as family, have you, Patricia? The room fell silent. Emily shifted uncomfortably on her feet, looking anywhere but at me. I have something to show you, I said, opening my laptop. The video played clearly, Patricia entering our house with her spare key, which was meant for emergencies only, heading straight for my study where the jewelry box was kept. You spied on me, Patricia gasped. No, David answered for me. She protected her home, like any sensible person would. I opened another file, photos of the real jewelry collection, each piece gleaming with authentic beauty. These are the originals, I explained. Safe where my grandmother put them years ago. She created the replicas not just to protect her work, but to teach a lesson about value and trust. Patricia sank onto our couch, her bravado finally cracking. All this time, you knew? Of course I knew. My grandmother taught me more than just about jewelry. She taught me about protecting what matters, about watching and waiting, about letting people reveal their true characters through their own actions. Emily spoke up for the first time, her voice small. The house I wanted. I told everyone I was getting it. Maybe, I suggested, it's time to think about earning things for yourself. My grandmother built her collection piece by piece. She taught me that anything worth having is worth working for. David placed a hand on my shoulder. Mom, you need to return the spare key. And we need to set some serious boundaries going forward. Patricia clutched her handbag, looking trapped. But we're family. Yes, I agreed. We are. And family should respect each other, support each other, not steal and scheme against each other. My grandmother's replicas weren't just copies. They were a test. One you failed spectacularly. What happens now? Emily asked, finally meeting my eyes. I pulled out an envelope. Inside is information about a first-time homebuyers program, real estate courses, financial planning resources. If you're serious about wanting a house, here's how you can work toward it, legitimately. Emily took the envelope, her hands trembling slightly. For the first time, I saw a glimmer of understanding in her eyes. Patricia stood abruptly. This isn't what I came for. I came for an apology. No, David said firmly. You came hoping to bully us into giving you what you wanted. That's not happening anymore. Things are going to change. As they left, Patricia's shoulders slumped in defeat. I thought about my grandmother's words. Sometimes the most valuable things we own are the lessons we learn. A week later, Emily called me, her voice hesitant. I signed up for one of those real estate courses, and I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. It wasn't a complete resolution, but it was a start. Patricia still avoided family gatherings, nursing her wounded pride, but her power over our lives was broken. David and I were stronger for having faced this together, and I knew my grandmother would have been proud. The jewelry box sits in my study now, filled with the replicas, a reminder that true value isn't always about what something costs, but what it teaches us about ourselves and others. Sometimes the most precious things we own are the wisdom to wait, the strength to stand firm, and the courage to let truth reveal itself in its own time. My grandmother's real legacy wasn't just in the genuine pieces she created, but in the lessons she left behind. Lessons about patience, protection, and the true meaning of family. As I look at the box now, I smile, knowing that its greatest value was never in the jewelry it contained, but in the truth it revealed. The text arrived just as I was pulling the turkey out of the oven. Don't bother visiting for Thanksgiving dinner. Amanda and her mom are the only family I need now. Stop sending money. We don't need your help anymore. I stared at my phone, the harsh words from my father blurring through my tears. My hands trembled as I set down the perfectly cooked turkey I prepared, hoping that maybe this year would be different. That maybe this year I could finally join them for a family holiday. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and at 32, I've spent the last 5 years secretly paying my father's medical bills after his heart surgery. Not that he knew. He thought his insurance had mysteriously covered everything. The truth was more complicated. I glanced at the latest hospital bill on my kitchen counter, $4,800 for his monthly medications and checkups. Money I'd been quietly paying since his first heart attack, coordinating with the hospital's billing department to keep my involvement hidden. My father thought his premium insurance was covering it all, never questioning why he didn't see the bills. The next text buzzed through. Amanda got straight A's this semester. That's what a real daughter looks like. Not someone who abandoned her family to move across the city. I hadn't abandoned anyone. I'd moved 30 minutes away to be closer to the hospital where I worked as a nurse. The same hospital that treated my dad. The same hospital where I'd arranged to have his bills sent directly to me. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd chosen nursing because of him. Watching him struggle with heart problems after Mom died had inspired me to help others. Now I spent my days caring for patients while secretly ensuring my own father could afford his care. Another text, your stepmom says you make her uncomfortable anyway. Always hovering, trying to give advice about my health. I'm fine. Amanda takes better care of me than you ever did. Amanda, my 23-year-old stepsister who'd moved in 3 years ago when my father married her mother, Patricia. They dated for only 6 months before the wedding. Since then, my childhood home had become a shrine to Amanda's achievements, while my family photos mysteriously disappeared one by one. I sat down at my kitchen table, surrounded by the Thanksgiving dinner I cooked, hoping against hope that this year's invitation wouldn't be rescinded. The turkey was still warm, filling my apartment with the scent of herbs. Mom's old recipe. She taught me to cook before cancer took her when I was 16. Dad had been different after that, but never like this. Never cruel. And don't send any Christmas presents this year. Another text buzzed through. Patricia says it makes Amanda feel bad that you're always trying to buy our love. Buy their love. I opened my banking app, looking at the latest transaction. $4,800 to Metropolitan Hospital. The same payment I'd made every month for 5 years, totaling over $300,000. Money I'd never mentioned, never held over his head, never used to prove my love. My phone rang. The hospital's billing department. Ms. Mitchell, there's been an issue with the latest payment for your father's account. What's wrong? I asked, my heart racing. The payment went through yesterday. Yes, but it's been rejected, the billing coordinator explained. We received instructions that all payments must come directly from the patient from now on. Apparently, Mrs. Patricia Mitchell called to complain about unauthorized payments being made on her husband's behalf. My stomach dropped. Patricia had discovered my secret, but instead of being grateful, she turned it into another weapon. Your father's portion after standard insurance would be $4,800 monthly, the coordinator continued. Should I inform him of the payment schedule? I closed my eyes, thinking of the text messages, of Amanda's straight A's, of Patricia's discomfort, of my father's rejection. Yes, I said quietly. I think it's time he knew. We'll send him the full billing history as well, she added. Standard procedure when changing payment arrangements. The full history. 5 years of monthly payments, every surgery, every medication, every follow-up appointment that I covered while they pretended I didn't care enough. My phone buzzed with one final text from my father. Have a nice life. Don't bother trying to be part of this family anymore. I looked at my empty dining room table, set for 4 people who would never arrive. At the turkey that would go uneaten. At the pumpkin pie cooling on the counter, Dad's favorite, made from Mom's recipe. Then I looked at the hospital bill, the latest in a long line of payments I'd made not for recognition or gratitude, but because I couldn't bear to see him struggle. Because despite everything, he was still my father. Please, I told the billing coordinator, make sure he gets the full history, every payment, every date, every amount. As I hung up, I realized this Thanksgiving would be different after all. Not because I'd finally be welcomed at their table, but because for the first time in 5 years, my father would learn what real family loyalty looked like. The truth was coming, served cold like the dinner growing stale on my table, and somehow that felt like something to be thankful for. The hospital called my dad the next morning. I was at work on an early shift, checking on patients, when my phone started buzzing again and again. First, 3 missed calls from Patricia, then a bunch of angry texts from Amanda, and finally a call from my dad. What is this bill? He asked, trying to stay calm but sounding worried. The hospital says I owe $4,800 a month. That can't be right. My insurance covers everything. I stepped into the empty break room and took a deep breath. No, Dad. I've been paying it for the last 5 years. Silence. What do you mean you've been paying it? He asked. Every bill. Every medication. Since your first heart surgery. I worked it out with the hospital, so everything came to me. More silence. I imagined him sitting at the kitchen table, the same one where I used to do homework, where Mom made Sunday dinner, where Patricia now hosts family meals I'm not invited to. That's over $300,000, he said, flipping through papers. $312,000 actually, I said, trying to sound calm, like I do with difficult patients. That's the same amount you told me not to send anymore. More silence. Why would you do this? He finally asked. Because you're my dad, I said. After Mom died, I promised I'd take care of you, even if you didn't want me to. I heard Patricia yelling in the background, tell her to fix it, call the hospital. She can't just stop paying. You don't get to ask me for anything, I said, loud enough for her to hear. Not after those texts yesterday, not after pushing me away for 3 years. But we can't afford this, Dad said. His voice shook. Patricia just put a down payment on a car for Amanda. We're already tight on money. Of course they were. I'd seen Amanda's social media, her new BMW, her shopping trips, fancy vacations, all while I worked extra hours to pay his medical bills. I know about the car, I said softly, and the cruise last month, and Amanda's shopping in New York. I saw the posts, all the family events I wasn't invited to, but I still kept paying. Sarah, he started. I interrupted him. Last night, I made Thanksgiving dinner. Mom's recipes, turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, even the pumpkin pie you love. I set the table for 4, hoping maybe this year would be different. But instead, I got texts saying I don't belong in your life. Patricia's voice got louder. She's trying to guilt trip us. No, I said firmly. I'm telling the truth. For the first time in 5 years, you're all going to see what real family care looks like. We can't pay this, my dad said again, sounding scared. Sarah, please, my pension isn't enough. I know, that's why I paid from the start, but you told me you didn't need me anymore. That Amanda takes better care of you. My pager went off. A patient needed me. I have to go, I said. The hospital billing office has my info if you need the payment records. And Dad? Yes, he said quietly. That turkey I made, it's in the freezer now, just like Mom used to do. But this time, not because we have leftovers, because there was no one to eat it with. I hung up before he could say more. My tears in the break room were just for me, no one else would see them. As I headed back to work, my phone buzzed again. A message from my dad. I didn't know. All this time, I didn't know. I replied. No, you didn't want to know. That's different. Then I turned off my phone and went back to caring for people who actually wanted my help. The truth was out, cold like my untouched Thanksgiving dinner. But somehow, I felt lighter. After 5 years of silence, my voice had finally been heard. Let them figure out the bills now. Let them realize what they lost. I had a job to do, and for the first time in years, no more secret payments to make. Sometimes the best way to care for someone is to let them face the truth on their own. 2 weeks passed in a blur of work shifts and unanswered calls. Patricia's number I blocked after the first day of constant harassment. Amanda's angry social media posts about fake family loyalty I ignored. But my father's messages, those were harder to dismiss. Please call me, he texted daily. We need to talk. It was during a quiet night shift that everything changed. I was doing my rounds when I saw a familiar name on the admission chart. James Mitchell, my father. Acute chest pain. My professional instincts took over as I rushed to the emergency room. There he was, looking smaller somehow in the hospital bed, Patricia notably absent. Sarah, he breathed when he saw me. I didn't know you were working tonight. I'm your assigned nurse, I said, checking his vitals with practiced efficiency. Where's Patricia? At home with Amanda. He winced as I adjusted his IV. They're looking at cheaper cars today, trying to return the BMW. I nodded, keeping my face neutral as I recorded his blood pressure. The doctor will be in soon. Try to rest. Wait, he caught my hand. Please, I've been trying to reach you. I gently removed my hand. This isn't the time, Dad. You need to focus on your health right now. No, he insisted, his voice stronger. I've been foolish for too long. When I saw those payment records, Sarah, I had no idea. All these years you were taking care of me while I let them push you away. I continued my checks, professional mask firmly in place. Your heart rate is elevated. You need to stay calm. I found your mother's old recipe box, he continued. Patricia had hidden it in the attic. And your childhood photos, they weren't lost. They were packed away because Patricia said they ruined the aesthetic of the house. My hands stilled on his chart. I kicked them out, he said quietly. Patricia and Amanda. The day after Thanksgiving. After I really looked at those hospital records, after I saw how much you'd sacrificed while they spent and spent. Dad, they've been living off your kindness while treating you like an outsider. I was living off your kindness while forgetting what real family means. His eyes filled with tears. Can you ever forgive me? I looked at my father, really looked at him. Past the medical equipment, past the patient chart, past the years of hurt. I saw the man who'd once taught me to ride a bike, who'd supported my dream of becoming a nurse, who lost himself after Mom died. It's not about forgiveness, I said finally. It's about understanding what family really means. It's not about expensive cars or perfect holidays. It's about being there for each other, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. Like you were there for me, he whispered, even when I didn't deserve it. Get some rest, I said, adjusting his blanket. We can talk more tomorrow. But before I could leave, he spoke again. Sarah, that turkey you made for Thanksgiving, is it still in your freezer? I nodded. Maybe when I'm better. We could have that dinner. Just us. For the first time in weeks, I felt myself smile. I'd like that. 3 days later, I helped Dad settle back into his house. A house now peacefully free of Patricia and Amanda's presence. As I heated up the preserved Thanksgiving turkey and Mom's special sides, Dad placed her recipe box back in its rightful place in the kitchen. You know, he said, watching me work, your mother would be so proud of you. Not just for becoming a nurse, but for being a better person than I've been. We sat down to our reheated Thanksgiving dinner, just the two of us. It wasn't perfect. The turkey was a little dry from freezing. The stuffing needed extra gravy. But as we shared our first real meal together in years, I realized something. Sometimes the best family moments aren't the picture-perfect ones. They're the ones that come after the storm, when truth and love finally find their way back home. Dad insisted on doing the dishes afterward, though his hands shook slightly from his medication. As he worked, I heard him humming, an old tune Mom used to sing while cooking. Some things, it seemed, could never really be packed away in an attic. 3 months have passed since then. Dad's health has improved, and so has our relationship. We have weekly dinners now, sometimes with Mom's recipes, sometimes with new ones we try together. The house feels like home again, filled with the family photos Patricia had hidden and the memories we're finally ready to share. The hospital bills. Dad's pension covers them now, though it's not easy, but he insists on paying them himself. It's time I took responsibility, he says. And every month when he makes that payment, I see him remember what real family loyalty looks like. Sometimes the most expensive things in life aren't measured in dollars, but in the courage it takes to face our mistakes and begin again. Laughter cut through the quiet, heavy air of the funeral home. My stepsister Olivia spoke just loud enough for everyone to hear, her voice full of hate. Look at her crying like she actually belongs here. Dad never even wanted her. I stood alone by my father's casket, gently placing my hand on it, trying not to cry. My name is Anna Mitchell, and at 32 years old, I was saying goodbye to the only parent who ever truly loved me. My stepmother Victoria walked over, her high heels clicking loudly on the floor. Her face wore a fake smile. And my dear, she said, using the wrong name on purpose like she always had, shouldn't you be helping with the food? That's more your style. I didn't correct her. My name is Anna, not Emma. I wasn't the help. I was James Mitchell's daughter. But Victoria had spent 20 years pretending I wasn't. She'd probably think she's getting something in the will, Olivia whispered to her brother Marcus. Like Dad would leave anything to the babysitter's kid. That's what they called my mom, the babysitter. But she had been my dad's first love. They were married for 8 years before she died. I was their wanted planned child. Victoria and her kids never cared about that. I'm here to say goodbye to my father, I said quietly, holding back tears. This isn't about money. Victoria laughed, cold and sharp. Oh, sweetie, everything is about money. Why else do you think your father married me after your mother's little accident? Her words hit me hard. Mom's car crash had shattered Dad and me. Then Victoria came in, acting like a kind neighbor. A year later, she and her kids moved into our house. Life was never the same. Speaking of money, Marcus added, fixing his tie, we should talk about the house. Olivia and I think it's time to sell. We'll be inheriting everything anyway. I looked at him and remembered when he first moved in at 13, asking me for help with homework. Now he was just like Victoria, cold, proud, and selfish. The lawyer will be here soon, Victoria said, checking her gold watch. He told me James gave clear instructions. Her tone made me uneasy. In the final months, when Dad was sick, she kept me away, saying he was too weak. My messages were ignored. My calls never returned. But I had one thing. A note. A small, worn piece of paper in my pocket. The last message Dad had passed to his nurse Sandra before Victoria fired her. Tell Anna I love her. Tell her to be patient. Tell her to remember the lighthouse. The lighthouse. The place where we scattered Mom's ashes. Our special spot. We went there every year on her birthday, until Victoria stopped it, calling it too depressing. At noon, the lawyer, Mr. Patterson, walked in. His face looked serious as he placed his briefcase down. Victoria rushed to greet him, smiling like a perfect widow. "Shall we begin?" she asked sweetly. "The family is ready." He nodded, but his eyes found mine. He looked at me with something I couldn't quite name, maybe not pity, but something close. It made Victoria's smile falter. "Yes," he said, opening his briefcase. "Let's read James Mitchell's last will and testament." Olivia clutched Marcus's arm, excited. Victoria stood between them, one hand on each of their shoulders like they were a picture-perfect family. I stayed by the casket, holding Dad's note and his last words, "Be patient." Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. The room went quiet. I thought about all the years I was pushed aside, treated like I didn't belong. "Before I begin," he said, "I should mention this will was updated 3 months ago, with very specific instructions." Victoria's smile grew. "Yes, James was always very detailed." "Let's hear it." The lawyer pulled out a thick envelope with a seal on it. "Very well," he said. "But I must warn you, this may surprise some of you." Victoria's hands tightened on her children's shoulders. Her smile faded just a bit. And for the first time since Dad died, I felt a small spark of hope. "Let's begin," said Mr. Patterson, breaking the seal, "with the last wishes of James Mitchell." "First," Mr. Patterson said clearly, "I need to explain why this will was changed. 3 months ago, James Mitchell asked to meet with me in private because he was worried about what was happening around him." Victoria's face turned pale. "What private meeting?" "I handled all of James' appointments while he was sick." "Not this one," Mr. Patterson replied. "The meeting was arranged with the help of his nurse, Sandra, before she was suddenly let go." My heart jumped. Sandra, the nurse who gave me Dad's final note. She had done more than I realized. "During that meeting," Mr. Patterson went on, "Mr. Mitchell gave me many documents, private recordings, bank records, medical reports." Olivia frowned. "What does any of that have to do with the will?" "Everything," Mr. Patterson said, pulling out another paper. "These records show a pattern of control. Phone calls were blocked, visitors turned away, and medical choices were made without the right process." Victoria stepped forward, clearly upset. "This is nonsense. I was protecting my husband when he was vulnerable. You were keeping him away from everyone," I said softly. "That's why I couldn't reach him." Mr. Patterson nodded. "Which brings us to the actual will. James Mitchell's entire estate, including the house, his investments, and all other property, will be placed in a trust." "A trust?" Marcus asked. "What kind of trust?" "The Mitchell Family Preservation Trust," Mr. Patterson answered, "with Anna Mitchell as the only trustee." The room exploded. Victoria lunged forward, furious. "This is a lie. He changed the will years ago. I saw it." "The paper you saw," Mr. Patterson said calmly, "was not the real will. Mr. Mitchell believed his documents were being watched, so he created a fake one to throw you off. I remembered Dad's note. Be patient. He'd known what they were doing, and he found a way to outsmart them." "The trust has clear rules," Mr. Patterson said, raising his voice over Victoria's yelling. "The house can't be sold unless the trustee agrees. Everyone living there now can stay, but they must help pay for its care." Olivia laughed bitterly. "You want us to pay rent? To her?" "Not rent," I said, finally understanding. "A fair share, like a real family would." Mr. Patterson gave a small smile. "Exactly. James wanted this to be a home for everyone, but only if you could live together like a true family." "This is ridiculous," Victoria said sharply. "We'll fight this." James wasn't thinking clearly. The will was signed in front of 2 doctors who said he was completely aware of what he was doing. Mr. Patterson said, "And with all the evidence he gave us, I don't think a court will be on your side." I reached into my pocket and touched Dad's note again. "The lighthouse." "Mr. Patterson," I asked, "did my dad leave anything about a certain place?" He nodded and pulled out one last envelope. "He said you'd ask about the lighthouse. This is for you. Open it there." Victoria's face went white. "The lighthouse? What's there?" "I thought about the times Dad and I went there to remember Mom, to talk and be close." "What had he left for me there?" "I guess I'll find out," I said, taking the envelope. I looked around the room as everything changed. Victoria and her children's plans were falling apart. Dad hadn't just protected me, He protected the idea of what our family used to be before they tried to erase it. His last words echoed in my head. Be patient. He hadn't just meant to wait, he meant that the truth would come out. As Mr. Patterson packed up his things, he glanced at his watch. The lighthouse closes at sunset, he said quietly. If you're going today? I nodded, holding the envelope tightly. Whatever Dad had left for me there, I knew it would matter. And I was ready. The lighthouse stood tall against the setting sun, its white walls painted orange by the fading light. I parked my car in the familiar gravel lot, the envelope from Mr. Patterson heavy in my hands. 20 years of memories washed over me, Mom's laughter, Dad's stories, the peace we'd found here before Victoria changed everything. With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope. Inside was a key and a letter in Dad's handwriting. My dearest Anna, if you're reading this, then everything has happened as I planned. The key opens the lighthouse keeper's office. I made arrangements with the Historical Society years ago. Look behind the blue painting of the harbor. I'm sorry for the pain you've endured. When I married Victoria, I thought I was doing the right thing, giving you a complete family. By the time I realized my mistake, she had already begun isolating us, using my grief over your mother to manipulate both of us. But I never stopped watching, never stopped planning. Every cruel word, every scheme, every attempt to push you away. I documented everything. The evidence is all there, behind that painting, along with something else. Something Victoria never knew existed. Your mother and I had a dream for you, long before she passed. We wanted to protect you, to ensure you'd always have a place to call home. The lighthouse wasn't just where we scattered our ashes, it was where we built your future. I love you, sweetheart. Never doubt that. Dad. I climbed the familiar steps to the office, my heart pounding. The key slid perfectly into the lock. Inside, the blue painting hung exactly where it always had, a constant through all my visits here. Behind it was a wall safe I'd never known existed. The combination was easy. My birthday, the same numbers Dad had used for everything important. Inside, I found a thick folder and a smaller envelope. The folder contained exactly what Dad had promised, years of documented evidence. Photos of Victoria tampering with our mail, recordings of her threatening the household staff, bank statements showing how she'd slowly siphoned away Dad's assets into private accounts. But it was the smaller envelope that made my hands shake. Inside was a deed and a partnership agreement dated 2 years before Mom's death. They had bought the lighthouse and the surrounding property through a private trust, converting it into a historical site with one condition, that their daughter would inherit the position of trustee on her 32nd birthday. I was now the owner of not just a family home, but a piece of history that had been mine all along. My phone buzzed. Victoria. I let it go to voicemail, already knowing what she'd say. Threats, demands, attempts to negotiate. But she had no power anymore. The evidence in this safe would ensure that. As the sun set, I walked out onto the lighthouse balcony, the same spot where we'd scattered Mom's ashes. The sea breeze carried the same salty sweetness it always had. And for the first time since Dad's death, I felt peace. We did it, Dad, I whispered to the wind. We really did it. The next morning, I called Mr. Patterson. Within a week, Victoria, Olivia, and Marcus moved out of the family home, their dreams of easy inheritance shattered. The evidence Dad had gathered ensured they couldn't contest anything without risking their own exposure. I turned the family home into a sanctuary for single parents transitioning through tough times, naming it after my mother. The lighthouse became a museum, sharing not just maritime history but stories of love, legacy, and justice. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I climb to the lighthouse balcony and think about patience. Dad taught me that justice doesn't always come quickly, but it does come to those who hold on to their truth and never let go of love. Victoria and her children eventually moved to another state, their perfectly crafted facade crumbling under the weight of their exposed lies. But the story people tell now isn't about their cruelty or defeat. It's about a father's love, strong enough to reach beyond death and right the wrongs of years past. The lighthouse still stands, its beam cutting through the darkest nights, guiding ships to safe harbor. Just like Dad's love had guided me through my darkest times, leading me home to the truth that had been waiting here all along. And on my mom's birthday each year, I scatter flowers from the balcony, knowing that somewhere, both my parents are watching, proud of the daughter who learned to be patient, to be strong, and to believe in the power of a love that never dies. Some people say they hear laughter on the lighthouse steps late at night. A man and a woman sharing jokes and dreams about their daughter's future. I like to think it's them, still watching over this place they created for me, still celebrating the justice that finally came to light. In the end, it wasn't just about winning or losing an inheritance. It was about preserving the truth of what family really means, not the perfect facade that Victoria tried to create, but the messy, loving, authentic bonds that withstand even death itself. Now when I look at old family photos, I don't see what I lost. I see what I gained. A legacy of love, strength, and the kind of patience that moves mountains, or in this case, reveals the truth hidden within a lighthouse, waiting for exactly the right moment to shine. The knock at the door made my heart stop. I knew who it was, the CPS worker my mother-in-law Margaret had called, claiming I was an unfit mother. I took a deep breath, smoothed my shirt, and opened the door with trembling hands. Mrs. Anderson, I'm Diana Wells from Child Protective Services. We received a concerning report about your children's welfare, the woman said, her expression professional but kind. Behind her, I could see Margaret's silver Mercedes parked across the street, her satisfied smirk visible through the windshield. My name is Emma Anderson, and at 32, I never imagined I'd be facing a CPS investigation orchestrated by my own mother-in-law. I had 3 children, twins Jack and Sophia, age 4, and baby Lily, just 8 months old. After Lily's birth, I'd struggled with postpartum depression, something I'd been open about with my family while seeking treatment. But Margaret had seen my vulnerability as an opportunity. She'd never approved of me, constantly comparing me to my husband James's first wife who'd passed away before we met. Now she was using my mental health struggles to try and take my children away. Please come in, I said, stepping aside. The house wasn't perfect. There were toys in the living room and dishes in the sink, but it was clean, safe, and filled with love. The twins were napping upstairs, and Lily was contentedly playing in her playpen. Mrs. Anderson, we received reports of severe neglect, Diana said, taking out her notebook. The complainant states you leave your children alone for hours, don't feed them regularly, and she paused, checking her notes, have violent outbursts in front of them. I felt my chest tighten, but I refused to let Margaret's lies break me. I understand your concerns, I said calmly. I'd like to show you something. I retrieved a thick folder from my office. Inside were documented records of every aspect of our family life since Lily's birth. My therapy appointments, the children's medical checkups, their preschool reports, even photographs of our daily activities. I'd started keeping these records the day Margaret first threatened to expose me as an unfit mother. I have postpartum depression, I explained, meeting Diana's eyes. I've been in treatment for 6 months. My therapist, Dr. Stevens, can verify everything. The children have never been left alone, they're well fed and they're thriving. Diana spent the next hour thoroughly inspecting our home, checking the kitchen, fully stocked, the children's rooms, clean and organized, and observing my interaction with Lily when she woke from her nap. The twins woke up soon after, running to me with sleepy smiles and eager hugs. Mama, can we have apple slices? Sophia asked, while Jack already headed to the kitchen where he knew they were kept in the bottom drawer, their special snack spot. As Diana watched our normal afternoon routine unfold, I could see her initial concern shifting to something else. She'd arrived expecting to find neglected children and a dangerous environment. Instead, she found a loving home with established routines and happy kids. Mrs. Anderson, Diana said finally, I have to ask, your mother-in-law made some very specific accusations. Can you tell me about your relationship with her? I sat down, keeping my voice steady. Margaret has never accepted me. She believes no one can replace her son's first wife. When I developed postpartum depression, she saw it as proof that I was unfit to be part of this family. I showed Diana the text messages, hundreds of them. Messages where Margaret threatened to take my children away, called me mentally unstable, and promised to save her grandchildren from me. Messages I carefully documented, along with dates and times of every incident. She stands in our driveway sometimes, taking pictures through our windows, I continued. She tells the neighbors I'm dangerous. She's tried to convince my husband to leave me, saying the children would be better off with her. Diana's expression grew serious as she reviewed the evidence of Margaret's harassment. Mrs. Anderson, have you considered filing for a restraining order? Before I could answer, the front door opened. James was home early from work, his face tight with concern. He'd rushed home after I texted him about the CPS visit. I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner, he said, sitting beside me. He turned to Diana. My mother has been harassing my wife for months. We've tried reasoning with her, setting boundaries, even threatening legal action. Nothing has worked. Diana closed her notebook. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, based on what I've seen today, there's no evidence to support the allegations of neglect or abuse. In fact, she paused, looking directly at me. I'm impressed by the level of documentation and organization you've maintained while dealing with this situation. Through the window, I could see Margaret still sitting in her car, probably waiting to witness my children being taken away. What she didn't know was that her plan was about to backfire spectacularly. However, Diana continued, I am concerned about the pattern of harassment you've documented. False reports to CPS are taken very seriously, especially when they appear to be part of a larger campaign of harassment. James squeezed my hand. What are you suggesting? Diana stood up, straightening her jacket. I'm going to recommend an investigation. Not into Mrs. Anderson's parenting, but into your mother's behavior. This kind of harassment can be devastating to a family's well-being, particularly when someone is already dealing with postpartum depression. As Diana left our house, I caught Margaret's shocked expression as the social worker walked straight to her car. I couldn't hear what was said, but I saw Margaret's face turn pale. This wasn't the end, I knew that. But for the first time since Lily's birth, I felt strong enough to fight back. Margaret had tried to use my mental health struggles against me, but she unknowingly given me the ammunition I needed to protect my family once and for all. James hugged me tightly as we watched his mother's car speed away. I'm so proud of you, he whispered. We'll end this, I promise. I nodded, holding him close as the twins played with their blocks and Lily babbled happily in her playpen. Margaret thought she could break me, but she'd only made me stronger. The real investigation was just beginning, and I was ready. The weeks following the CPS visit were tense but transformative. Diana's investigation into Margaret's harassment had opened a floodgate of revelations that none of us were prepared for. We've received similar complaints about your mother-in-law from 3 other families, Diana told us during our follow-up meeting. She spread several files across our dining room table while the children played in the next room under their babysitter's supervision. It turned out Margaret had a history of harassing her son's partners. James' older brother Michael's ex-wife had filed a police report against her 5 years ago. His younger brother David's girlfriend had moved to another state just to escape her interference. I had no idea, James said, his voice hollow as he read through the reports. They never told me. I thought it was just me. I finished softly, placing my hand over his. The evidence was overwhelming. Margaret had used the same tactics with each woman: surveillance, false accusations, attempts to turn family members against them. She'd even called CPS on Michael's ex-wife, claiming she was drugging her children. The investigation had proven the allegations false, but the damage to their family had been done. One afternoon, while sorting through old family photos James had brought from his father's house, I found something that made everything click into place. It was a worn envelope containing letters from James's late wife, Anna. James, I called, my hands shaking. I think you need to see this. The letters detailed Anna's own struggles with Margaret's interference. She'd written to her parents about Margaret's constant criticism, her surprise visits, her attempts to control every aspect of their lives. The last letter was dated just 2 weeks before her fatal car accident. I can't take her surveillance anymore, Anna had written. She follows me everywhere, takes pictures, tells everyone I'm unstable. James doesn't see it. He thinks she's just being protective. But I'm scared. Yesterday she threatened to take everything from me if I don't leave on my own. James read the letters in silence, tears streaming down his face. She told me Anna had been acting paranoid, he whispered, that she'd been imagining things. I believed her. Oh God, I believed her. The guilt in his voice broke my heart. I held him as he cried, both of us processing the weight of this revelation. Margaret hadn't just been harassing me. She'd been systematically destroying relationships for years, possibly contributing to the circumstances that led to Anna's accident. Deanna helped us file for a temporary restraining order. The evidence was substantial, The documented harassment, the false CPS report, the pattern of behavior revealed in the other cases, and now Anna's letters. Margaret's response was swift and vicious. She began calling other family members, telling them I had manipulated James into turning against her, that I was using my mental illness to steal her grandchildren. But this time, her tactics didn't work. Michael was the first to reach out. "I should have warned you," he said during a long phone call with James. "After what happened with Karen, I wanted to pretend it never happened. I'm so sorry." David followed, sharing his own stories of how Margaret had driven away every woman he dated. "She always said she was protecting us," he explained, "but she was really just controlling us." The family dynamic was shifting. Years of silence were being broken, and Margaret's carefully constructed image of the devoted mother was crumbling. One evening, as I tucked the twins into bed, Sophia asked a question that made my heart ache. "Mama, why doesn't Grandma love us anymore?" I sat on the edge of her bed, choosing my words carefully. "Grandma loves you very much," I said. "But sometimes people show love in ways that aren't healthy. That's why we need to take a break from seeing her for a while." "Because she was mean to you?" Jack asked from his bed. "Yes, sweetheart, and it's important to stand up to people who are mean, even if they're family." As I kissed them goodnight, I realized that this wasn't just about protecting myself anymore. It was about teaching my children about healthy relationships and boundaries, about standing up for what's right even when it's difficult. Later that night, James and I sat on our back porch, watching the stars while Lily slept peacefully inside. "I've called a family therapist," he said quietly, "for all of us. I think we need help processing everything." I squeezed his hand, grateful for how far we'd come. The man who once dismissed his mother's behavior as just her way was now actively working to protect our family and heal from years of manipulation. "We're going to be okay," I said, and for the first time in months, I truly believed it. Diana's investigation was building a strong case, and Margaret's web of control was unraveling thread by thread. But even as we gathered more evidence and support, I knew the hardest part was still to come. Margaret wouldn't give up her control easily, and we needed to be prepared for whatever she might do next. What we didn't expect was that her next move would lead to the most shocking revelation of all, one that would change everything we thought we knew about our family's history. The revelation came on a rainy Tuesday morning. James's father, George, who had remained quietly on the sidelines throughout the ordeal, arrived at our door looking older and more tired than I'd ever seen him. "There's something you need to know," he said, placing a weathered leather journal on our kitchen table. "Something I should have told you years ago." It was Margaret's old diary dating back to when James and his brothers were children. George had found it while cleaning out their attic after the restraining order forced Margaret to move out. "I knew she was controlling," George said, his voice heavy with regret. "But I never understood the extent until I read this. She's been planning these interventions for years." The diary detailed Margaret's systematic approach to controlling her sons' lives. She had actual lists of techniques to use: emotional manipulation, gaslighting, false accusations. She documented every victory when she successfully drove someone away from her children. But the most chilling entry was about Anna's death. "The accident wasn't an accident," George said quietly. According to her diary, Margaret had been tampering with Anna's car, loosening parts, hoping to scare her into leaving. She never meant for the brake line to fail completely. James stumbled back, gripping the counter for support. I felt the room spin as the implications sank in. Margaret hadn't just harassed Anna. She had inadvertently caused her death. Within hours, Diana and the police were at our house. The diary became crucial evidence not just for our case, but for a potential criminal investigation. Margaret was arrested that evening. The news coverage was immediate and overwhelming. "Controlling mother-in-law's harassment leads to criminal charges," read the headlines. Years of manipulative behavior had finally caught up with her. In the midst of the chaos, something unexpected happened. Our community rallied around us. Neighbors who had believed Margaret's lies about me came forward with apologies. Parents from the twins' preschool organized meal trains and playdates to give us time to deal with the legal proceedings. The most profound change was in James. The weight of guilt over not believing Anna, not protecting me sooner, could have crushed him. Instead, it transformed him. "I'm going to make this right," he promised, holding me close one night. Not just for us, but for Anna, for Michael's ex-wife, for everyone she hurt. He organized a support group for families affected by parental manipulation and control. The stories that emerged showed just how many people had suffered in silence, thinking they were alone. My postpartum depression, which Margaret had tried to use against me, became a source of strength. I started speaking at support groups, sharing how documenting everything had ultimately protected our family. The twins, resilient as children often are, adapted to the changes with remarkable grace. Mummies helping other families, they'd tell people proudly. Lily grew into a happy, secure toddler, untouched by the darkness that had threatened our family. Margaret's trial was brief but impactful. She pleaded guilty to multiple charges of harassment and involuntary manslaughter. The judge's sentence, 15 years, reflected the severity of her actions and their tragic consequences. As I sat in the courtroom, watching Margaret being led away, I felt no satisfaction, only relief. The woman who had tried to destroy our family had lost everything in her attempt to control it. 1 year later, we gathered for a different kind of family meeting. James and his brothers, their partners, and all the children came together to heal and rebuild. It was messy and emotional, but it was real. No manipulation, no control, just honest love and acceptance. Looking around our extended family, I realized that Margaret's actions, while intended to tear us apart, had ultimately brought us closer together. We had all learned valuable lessons about standing up for ourselves, supporting each other, and recognizing toxic behavior before it could take root. George, who now spent every Sunday with his grandchildren, making up for lost time, summed it up best. Sometimes the hardest battles lead to the most important victories. As I watched my children play with their cousins, secure in the knowledge that they were safe and loved, I knew he was right. Margaret had tried to break me, claiming I was an unfit mother. Instead, she had helped me become stronger, not just for myself, but for every mother facing similar battles. The CPS investigation she initiated hadn't just cleared my name. It had exposed a truth that needed to be revealed, setting us all free in the process. Take your things and leave, Patricia screamed, throwing my clothes into black garbage bags. Amanda needs this room now. You've overstayed your welcome. I stood in the doorway of what had been my bedroom for the past year, watching my mother-in-law destroy the life I'd built while my husband served overseas. This is my house too, I said quietly, my hands steady despite the storm raging inside me. Michael and I. Michael isn't here. She cut me off, her face flushed with anger. And while he's away, I'm in charge. Amanda needs a proper space now that she's back from college. You're just the wife. She's his sister. Blood comes first. I watched as she continued ransacking my room, throwing my carefully organized belongings into bags like they were trash. My name is Sophie Anderson, and at 26, I was being kicked out of my own home by my mother-in-law while my husband Michael served in the military overseas. Patricia had never approved of me. To her, I was the girl who'd stolen her precious son away, the outsider who didn't deserve to be part of their perfect family. When Michael was deployed 8 months ago, she'd moved in to help. But her true intentions became clear soon enough. Mom, are you sure about this? Amanda's voice drifted in from the hallway. She stood there in her designer clothes, feigning concern while barely hiding her satisfaction. At 22, she'd always been the princess of the family, and having me in what she considered her house had been a thorn in her side. Of course I'm sure, Patricia snapped, tossing my books into another bag. Sophie needs to learn her place. This house has been in our family for generations. She's just temporary, you're permanent. I felt my throat tighten at her words. If only they knew the truth about the house, about the conversation I'd had with Michael's grandfather James before he passed away last year. But I held my tongue, remembering his words. Timing is everything, Sophie. Let them show who they really are first. My phone buzzed. A message from Michael. Hey love, sorry I missed our call. Signal's bad here. Hope everything's good at home. Love you. My heart ached as I thought about telling him what was happening, but I couldn't. He needed to focus on staying safe, not worrying about family drama back home. I'll leave, I said finally, my voice calm. But you should know. Save your threats. Patricia interrupted, zipping up the last bag. Amanda deserves this space more than you ever did. You have an hour to get out, or I'm calling the police. I nodded, picked up my bags, and walked out without another word. As I loaded my car, I could hear them upstairs, already planning how to redecorate Amanda's new room. The satisfaction in their voices made my stomach turn. That evening, I checked into a small hotel on the outskirts of town. Sitting on the bed, surrounded by garbage bags containing my life, I pulled out the envelope I kept hidden in my jacket. Inside was the property deed to the house, signed over to me by Grandpa James 6 months before he died. They never appreciated this place, he told me during our last conversation. Patricia and Amanda treat it like a status symbol. But you, Sophie, you love it for what it is. You remind me of my late wife. That's why I'm leaving it to you. Just wait until the right moment to tell them. Some lessons need to be learned the hard way. I traced my fingers over his signature, remembering how he'd been the only one who'd welcomed me into the family without judgment. He'd seen through Patricia's perfect mother act and Amanda's innocent daughter facade. He'd known exactly what would happen when he was gone. Opening my laptop, I emailed Michael's Aunt Julia, a lawyer who'd helped Grandpa James with the property transfer. It's time, I wrote. They've shown their true colors. Her response came quickly. I've been expecting this. Come to my office tomorrow. We'll handle everything legally and properly. They won't know what hit them. I looked around the hotel room, allowing myself a small smile. Patricia and Amanda thought they'd won, thought they'd finally gotten rid of the unwanted outsider. They had no idea that in 6 months, once all the legal proceedings were complete and Michael was back home, they'd learn exactly who owned their precious family house. For now, though, I would wait. I'd let them redecorate, let them think they'd succeeded in pushing me out. Sometimes the best revenge isn't immediate. It's carefully planned, perfectly timed, and absolutely legal. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Michael. Just got a weird text from Amanda about redecorating her new room. What's going on? I replied simply, don't worry about it, love. Everything's under control. Stay safe and come home to me. And it was under control, just not in the way his mother and sister expected. The next 6 months passed in a carefully orchestrated dance. I moved into a cozy apartment across town, started a new job at a local art gallery, and watched from afar as Patricia and Amanda turned my home into their personal showcase. Through mutual friends, I heard about every change they made. Amanda had painted over the vintage wallpaper Grandpa James's wife had chosen decades ago. Patricia had replaced the antique light fixtures with modern chandeliers. They even started renovating the old library, turning it into what they called the social media room for Amanda's growing influencer career. Each change felt like a personal attack, but I stayed quiet. Julia, Michael's aunt, assured me everything was proceeding according to plan. The court date is set for next month, she told me during one of our weekly meetings. The property transfer paperwork is ironclad. James knew exactly what he was doing. My phone lit up with a text from Michael. Coming home in 2 weeks, love. Mom's acting weird about where you're staying. What's really going on? I'd been vague about the situation in our communications, never wanting to burden him with the truth while he was serving. But now, with his return approaching, it was time to be honest. I called him using the secure line he'd set up for important conversations. Sophie, his voice, even through the static, made my heart skip. Talk to me. What's happening back home? I told him everything, how his mother had thrown me out, how Amanda had taken over our room, and finally, about Grandpa James's gift. There was a long silence on the other end. Grandpa left you the house. Michael's voice was a mixture of surprise and something else. Pride, maybe. That actually makes perfect sense. He always said you were the only one who truly appreciated it. Are you angry I didn't tell you sooner? I asked, holding my breath. No, he said firmly. You were protecting me, letting me focus on my mission, just like you protected the house by waiting to reveal the truth. My mother and sister, they've shown their true colors, haven't they? They have, I agreed softly. The court date is set for 3 days after you return. Julia's handling everything. Michael's laugh was warm through the phone. Julia's involved. Oh, Mom's going to hate that. She's never been able to manipulate my aunt. We talked for another hour, making plans for his return. For the first time in months, I felt completely at peace with what was coming. A week before Michael's return, I drove past the house. Patricia had hired landscapers to tear out the heritage rose garden Grandpa James's wife had planted. In its place, they were installing a modern water feature, something Amanda had seen on a home renovation show. Patricia spotted me driving by and her face twisted into a smug smile. She probably thought I was torturing myself, watching them transform what had once been my home. If only she knew. The day Michael returned, I picked him up from the airport. He looked tired but happy, his eyes lighting up when he saw me. We embraced for a long moment, making up for months of separation. Ready to go home, I asked, a slight smile playing on my lips. Not to that house, he said firmly. Not until everything's sorted. We'll stay at your apartment. When we drove past the house, Patricia and Amanda were outside, putting up a welcome home banner. They waved frantically, but Michael didn't stop. Their faces as we drove by were priceless confusion turning to anger as they realized their perfect homecoming wasn't going according to plan. Mom's called 6 times already, Michael said, checking his phone as we entered my apartment. She's demanding to know why we didn't stop, why you've corrupted me against the family. He rolled his eyes. I told her we'd see her in court. How did she take that? I asked, unpacking his bags. She hung up. Then Amanda texted saying I'm betraying the family legacy. He pulled me close. Little do they know, Grandpa James trusted you with that legacy more than anyone. That night, as we lay in bed, Michael turned to me. You know what really gets me? They thought they could just throw you away, like you weren't family. Grandpa James saw what they couldn't, that you're the one who truly loves this family, this home, for all the right reasons. I snuggled closer to him, feeling truly at home for the first time in months. 3 more days, I whispered. 3 more days until they learned the truth. Just before we fell asleep, Michael's phone buzzed one last time. A message from Patricia. This house has been in our family for generations. Don't let that girl destroy our legacy. Michael showed me the message and we both laughed. If only they knew whose legacy they'd really been destroying all these months. The truth would come out soon enough. And when it did, Patricia and Amanda would learn that sometimes family isn't about blood. It's about who truly cares for the things that matter most. The morning of the court hearing arrived crisp and clear. I wore the pearl necklace Grandpa James had given me on my wedding day. It was my wife's, he'd said. She'd want you to have it. You understand the value of memories, not just things. Michael and I arrived early, finding Julia already waiting outside the courtroom. Patricia and Amanda swept in minutes later, dressed like they were attending a social event rather than a legal proceeding. Their confidence wavered slightly when they saw Julia. What's she doing here? Patricia hissed to her lawyer, loud enough for us to hear. Representing the rightful owner of the property, Julia replied calmly, her smile sharp as a razor. Inside the courtroom, Patricia's face turned increasingly pale as Julia presented the evidence. The property deed, Grandpa James's notarized letter explaining his decision, and photographs documenting the unauthorized changes they'd made to the historic home. Your Honor, Julia said, her voice clear and strong, my client, Sophie Anderson, was gifted this property by James Anderson 6 months before his passing. He chose her specifically because of her dedication to preserving the home's history and character. Patricia shot to her feet. That's impossible. The house has been in our family for generations. Yes, the judge said, reviewing the documents, and according to these papers, Mr. James Anderson chose to keep it in the family, through his grandson's wife, Mrs. Sophie Anderson. Amanda burst into tears, but they weren't her usual manipulative sobs. These were tears of genuine shock as her perfectly planned future crumbled around her. The property transfer is legal and binding, the judge continued. Furthermore, given the unauthorized modifications to this historic property, Mrs. Anderson would be within her rights to demand immediate vacancy. I stood up, my voice steady. Your Honor, I don't wish to remove them immediately. I'll give them 30 days to find new arrangements. I turned to Patricia and Amanda. But the renovations stop now, and the rose garden will be restored. The judge nodded approvingly. A generous offer, Mrs. Anderson. I suggest you take it, she added, looking at Patricia and Amanda. Outside the courthouse, Patricia finally broke her shocked silence. You planned this, she accused, pointing a shaking finger at me. You manipulated James, turned him against us. No, Michael said firmly, stepping forward. Grandpa saw exactly who everyone was. He saw how you treated Sophie, how you valued appearance over substance. He made his choice, and it was the right one. Back at the house, our house now, truly and legally, Michael and I stood in the entrance hall. Despite Patricia and Amanda's changes, I could still feel the warmth that had first drawn me to this place. Where do we start? Michael asked, looking around at the modern fixtures that had replaced the antique ones. I smiled, pulling out a folder. Actually, I have all the original blueprints and photos of how everything used to look. Grandpa James gave them to me last year. He said someday we'd need them to restore the house to its true glory. Over the next month, as Patricia and Amanda grudgingly packed up and moved out, we began the restoration process. The contractors carefully removed the modern additions, uncovering the beautiful historical details beneath. Each day revealed another piece of the home's soul, temporarily hidden but never truly gone. The rose garden was my first priority. I had cuttings from the original plants, carefully tended in my apartment over the past 6 months. Grandpa James's wife had documented every variety in her garden journal, which he'd entrusted to me. "You'll know when to use this," he'd said with a wink. On the day Patricia and Amanda finally left, Michael found me in the library, which we were returning to its original state. "No regrets?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me. "None," I replied, looking around at the room that would soon house books again instead of ring lights and cameras. This is what Grandpa James wanted, someone to love this house for what it is, not what it could be turned into. That evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, a car pulled into the driveway. It was Julia, carrying a large box. "Found these in my attic," she said, setting it down. "Grandpa James left them with me for safekeeping. Said to give them to you once everything was settled." Inside were photo albums documenting the house's history, and at the bottom, a letter addressed to me. "Dear Sophie, if you're reading this, you've proven me right. You fought for this house the right way, with patience, grace, and determination. These albums show the house's heart and soul through the years. Add your own chapters to them. Make new memories, and remember, sometimes the best revenge is simply proving someone right about you. Love, Grandpa James." I wiped away tears as Michael hugged me close. Through the window, we could see the first blooms appearing in the restored rose garden. Sometimes I realized coming home isn't just about returning to a place. It's about honoring the trust someone placed in you and proving that their faith wasn't misplaced.